A janitor at a prestigious law firm answers a call in flawless German. Within minutes, her hidden brilliance shakes the very foundation of the company. Dr. Maya Carter, once invisible in a cleaning uniform, exposes a system of corruption, earns a seat in the boardroom, and transforms hundreds of lives. This isn't just a story, it's a revolution sparked by one woman's voice. Want to know how one overlooked woman changed an entire industry? Tell us, where are you watching from? Subscribe now to hear more powerful stories of courage, justice, and rising against the odds. Maya Carter's sneakers squeaked softly against the marble floor of the 28th level, the shine of the hallway reflecting the kind of perfection expected at Blake & Finch LLP. It was 10:42 p.m., and everyone else had gone home hours ago, leaving behind coffee rings on mahogany desks and echoes of deals whispered in glass-walled boardrooms. Maya had long since grown used to being invisible here. A part of the night, just another shadow in the corner with a mop in hand. That night, though, would break that silence. Her phone buzzed in the deep pocket of her cleaning apron. She rarely answered during shifts. Tanya Brooks, her manager, had made the rules clear. No phones, no talking, no distractions. But the screen flashed a number with a German country code. Her heart skipped. It had to be the email she had nearly given up on, the one she sent 2 years ago with her thesis on multilingual arbitration ethics. Maya glanced around. The corridor was quiet. No one. She stepped behind a tall indoor plant, her back pressed against the wall, and answered in a whisper. "Hello, Maya Carter spricht," she said, her German flawless and professional. The voice on the other end responded warmly. It was Professor Kramer from Humboldt University. Her paper was being considered for an International Legal Linguistics Award. He wanted to ask about her availability to attend a panel in Berlin. Maya's words flowed naturally, moving from legal theory to cultural nuance. Her passion rekindled in every syllable. She didn't see the elevator open behind her. She didn't hear the soft footfalls of leather Oxfords. But Nathan Blake, CEO of Blake & Finch, paused mid-step when he heard a cleaner behind a potted ficus delivering an eloquent dissection of arbitration terminology in native-level German. He stood there, silent, his sharp eyes narrowing as he took in the woman in coveralls holding a mop in one hand and a phone in the other. "Ich danke Ihnen sehr, Professor. Ich werde Ihre E-Mail sofort bestätigen," Maya said, just as she sensed the air shift. She turned and froze. There he was, Nathan Blake. Billionaire, titan of corporate law, and the man whose name was on every document she had ever mopped around. Tanya Brooks appeared a beat later, her high heels clicking with purpose. Her face twisted the moment she saw Maya's phone. "Carter, in my office, now." The next 10 minutes were a blur of fluorescent-lit stares and glares from coworkers who had learned long ago that ambition got you punished, not promoted. Tanya didn't even sit down. "You know the rules, Maya, no phones. Especially not in executive corridors. And what were you even saying? French?" "German," Maya corrected before she could stop herself. Tanya's eyes narrowed. "I don't care if it was alien gibberish. You embarrassed us. Cleaning staff doesn't get to chat about international law in front of the CEO." "I didn't know he was there," Maya murmured. "No, of course you didn't. Because you're not supposed to be anything but background noise. That's why you'll be reassigned. Conference room restrooms, double shift, starting tomorrow." Maya didn't argue. She nodded, throat tight, and walked out. That night, her apartment smelled like reheated noodles and bleach. Her roommates, nurses on the night shift, were gone. The only sound was the soft hum of the old fridge and her breath catching as she stared at her wall. There, hanging slightly crooked, was her MBA in International Business from NYU. Next to it, framed in plastic, were certificates from translation institutes across Europe and Asia. 6 years. 6 years scrubbing tiles while her applications disappeared into the void. 38 ignored resumes. 12 denied internal transfer requests. 1,000 little humiliations. And still, she woke up every morning and put on that uniform, because surviving meant swallowing hope. She had no idea that the man who overheard her behind that ficus had already asked HR for her file. Or that the phone call she answered in German had cracked open the door to a truth much bigger than her. Maya arrived at the office the next morning 30 minutes early, her eyes hollow from a sleepless night. She'd stayed up debating whether to quit whether to file another complaint that would surely vanish into some digital abyss. Instead, she ironed her uniform, tied her curls back into a tight bun, and swiped her badge with robotic precision. The only thing she could control was how she showed up. As she finished wiping the brass trim along the elevator doors, the front desk phone rang. "Maya Carter?" the receptionist called out, confusion etched into her voice. "HR wants to see you. Now." Maya blinked. "Are you sure? That's what they said? Top floor." Her stomach dropped. The top floor. The only time anyone from janitorial went there was to get fired. Still, she walked to the private elevator with steady steps, fighting to keep her hands from shaking. When the chrome doors closed behind her, she caught her reflection in the mirror. Uniform crisp, name tag shining, eyes filled with dread. The HR director greeted her with an unreadable smile. "Mr. Blake is expecting you. Please have a seat." "Mr. Blake?" She didn't move. I think there's been a mistake." "No mistake." Moments later, the double oak doors to the CEO's office opened. Nathan Blake stood at the far end, leaning against the edge of a sleek desk that looked like it belonged in a Bond villain's lair. The Manhattan skyline glowed behind him. He didn't waste time. German, Portuguese, Mandarin, and Spanish. "That's correct." Maya nodded slowly, unsure what game was being played. "I had HR pull your resume. MBA in International Business, top 3% of your class, 5 language certifications. Yet, for 6 years, you've been waxing conference tables?" She swallowed. "I applied internally 38 times, always denied." "By whom?" "Tanya Brooks and Paul Whitaker." Nathan scribbled both names into a leather notebook without flinching. "Curious. Whitaker's been complaining non-stop about the lack of multilingual support for our international clients." Maya said nothing. She had learned long ago that pointing out irony rarely helped. "There's a 3-day international legal summit starting tomorrow," he continued, tapping the edge of a thick folder. "Executives from Germany, Japan, and Brazil will be here. We've spent $70,000 on interpreters, and yet..." He paused. "I heard you speak German better than the lead translator we just hired." Maya blinked. "You want me to clean their suites?" He smirked faintly. "No, I want you to be our temporary executive liaison for the summit. Your job will be to bridge gaps, translate when necessary, ensure nothing gets lost linguistically or culturally." Her breath caught. "And the pay? $6,000 a week, starting today." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "You're overqualified. You've always been overqualified. And something tells me you've also been buried on purpose." Maya nodded, stunned. Her pulse thundered in her ears. An hour later, she stepped out of the elevator on the executive floor again, this time not as the cleaning staff, but as a liaison with a tablet in hand and a laminated badge clipped to a navy blazer. Tanya Brooks spotted her immediately. The look on her face was a mix of panic and disbelief. "Carter? What are you doing up here without a uniform?" "Working," Maya replied smoothly. "Mr. Blake appointed me as the executive liaison for the summit." "That's impossible. You don't have an MBA from NYU, fluent in 5 languages. My resume's been in your system for 6 years." Tanya opened her mouth, but Maya was already walking past her, calm and certain for the first time in years. In the conference prep room, Maya scanned the translated materials for the summit and froze. Whole sections of the Portuguese contract were inaccurate, bordering on offensive. It wasn't just unprofessional, it could damage the firm's reputation. As she began rewriting the documents, carefully restoring meaning and cultural nuance, she heard a quiet voice behind her. "How did you know that was wrong?" It was Nathan, watching her from the doorway. The translator used Brazilian slang in a formal legal clause. "It would be like writing a U.S. contract in emoji," she explained without looking up. Nathan nodded thoughtfully. "Whitaker hired them." Maya didn't reply. She didn't need to. The real translation was already underway, and not just in language, but in truth. By noon, Maya was buried in files, contracts, translations, briefing notes, each one riddled with small but devastating errors. She'd barely had a sip of water when Caroline Evans from HR quietly stepped into the prep suite, closing the door behind her. Unlike most others in the executive wing, Caroline didn't look at Maya like she was a mistake that needed correcting. She looked like someone holding on to a secret. "I've been waiting for the right moment," Caroline said, her voice low. "I saw your resume 3 months ago. I couldn't understand why someone with your background was cleaning floors. Maya looked up from a page where exclusive partnership had been mistranslated to something resembling restricted romantic agreement. I tried raising it with Whitaker, Caroline continued, her eyes flashing, but he shut it down immediately. Maya hesitated, then flipped her laptop around. You're not the only one. These are emails I sent him over the years, pointing out mistakes, offering help, asking for transfers. Nothing but silence. Caroline exhaled sharply. There's something you need to see. She slid a flash drive across the table. Hiring data. I downloaded the records before he could restrict access. The patterns are disturbing. That night, Maya barely slept. She studied every document, cross-referenced hiring dates, job descriptions, and internal memos. There was a clear pattern. Qualified minority candidates consistently rejected or buried in maintenance roles, while contracts were handed to vendors linked to Whitaker and other executives. Her chest tightened at the scale of it. By morning, the lobby was gleaming, the air filled with polished wood, expensive perfume, and anticipation. Delegates from Brazil, Japan, and Germany began arriving for the International Legal Summit. Maya, now in a tailored navy pantsuit, greeted them fluently, switching between languages with ease. She moved through conversations as though she had always belonged there. During the networking session, a tall man with silver hair approached her with cautious excitement. "Excuse me, are you Maya Carter?" he asked in accented English. She blinked. "Yes, I am." "You wrote the paper on cultural discrepancies in multilingual legal arbitration, yes?" Maya's eyebrows rose. "I did." The man beamed. "I've cited your work twice in Berlin conferences. It's brilliant. You're brilliant." Within seconds, he was introducing her to a group of European delegates. "This is the scholar I was telling you about," he said proudly. "Her work redefined how we look at contract phrasing." From the balcony above, Nathan watched everything unfold. Maya's presence had changed the tone of the summit. People listened more closely, asked better questions, and approached legal discussions with renewed interest. But it wasn't just her intelligence, it was her grace. Her ability to command attention without demanding it. Later that evening, Maya stepped outside to catch her breath. The city pulsed beneath the sky, a maze of potential. That's when she felt the presence behind her. "Carter," Paul Whitaker said sharply. She turned slowly. His smile was taut and fake, like a suit that didn't quite fit. "You've made quite the impression. Nathan seems taken with you." "Just doing the job I was assigned," she said evenly. His eyes narrowed. "Stay in your lane. This isn't a fairy tale. You start asking the wrong questions, you won't last." Maya met his gaze without flinching. "Is that a threat?" "A warning." She nodded once. "Thanks, I'll make sure to document it." He smirked and walked off, but not before glancing over his shoulder, half curious, half nervous. Inside, Maya slipped her phone from her blazer pocket. She had recorded every word. That night, she met Caroline at a quiet diner off Lexington. They sat in the back booth, laptops open, files spread between coffee cups and water-stained menus. "We need to present this to Nathan," Maya said. "All of it. The fake certifications, the nepotism, the deliberate suppression of internal talent." Caroline nodded. "He'll listen now." Maya leaned back in her seat, the weight of years finally shifting. "I don't want just justice," she said. "I want change." The morning of day 2 began with a tension Maya could feel in her bones. She had barely stepped into the executive lounge when she saw Whitaker hovering near the coffee station with a young woman who looked barely out of college. The girl was clutching a bright red folder labeled Final Translation, Master Contract. Maya's heart sank. She recognized the girl instantly. Ashley Whitaker, Paul's niece. Maya had only seen her in passing, usually being ushered into elevators she had no clearance to enter. Now, here she was, visibly nervous, nodding as Paul reassured her. "Your Mandarin translation is perfectly adequate, Ashley. There's nothing to worry about." "Adequate?" Maya's chest tightened. She waited until they left, then made a sharp detour to the printer station. One copy of that file had been queued and forgotten. She printed it quietly and flipped through the pages. Her hands trembled with disbelief. The same critical errors, mistranslated titles, misused business terms, and worst of all, a line implying a secondary partnership clause that didn't exist. It was the same mistake that nearly tanked a deal last quarter. She grabbed her phone and headed straight for Nathan's office. He looked up as she entered unannounced. his expression shifting from surprise to concern. "Mr. Blake, I know this isn't protocol, but we have a serious problem," Maya said, handing him the file. "Whitaker is replacing my corrected translations with ones done by his niece, and I have proof it's been happening for years." Nathan's brow furrowed as he flipped through the document. "These are unacceptable." "I also found vendor payments," Maya continued, tapping her phone. "They paid her company 3 times the market rate, and she doesn't even have certified credentials. I contacted Peking University. They've never issued her a certificate in Mandarin." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Are you absolutely certain?" "I have emails, recordings, and hiring data. Caroline Evans helped me collect everything." Before Nathan could respond, Caroline rushed in, a folder clutched in her hands. "Sir, sorry to interrupt, but I think you need to see this," she said breathlessly, placing the folder on his desk. "Hiring records for the past 5 years. Repeated rejections of highly qualified non-white candidates, especially women. There's a clear pattern." Nathan scanned the contents quickly, his expression darkening with every page. "I suspected something was off," he muttered. "But this is systemic." Just then, the office door flew open. Paul Whitaker barged in, clearly rattled. "Richard, the Dutch firm is ready to sign, but they're raising questions about inconsistencies in the Mandarin version. I think Johnson must have." He stopped, realizing the room had gone silent. Nathan stood slowly, walked to the door, and closed it with deliberate calm. He turned, his voice low and steady. "Paul, I'm looking at vendor payments for $70,000 worth of botched translations, while Maya, who holds an MBA and speaks 5 languages, has been cleaning bathrooms." Whitaker scoffed. "I don't know what you're talking about. We hired professionals." "Your niece," Maya said flatly. "Ashley. She has no formal training, and I just confirmed her credentials were forged." Whitaker's face contorted. "You're just a cleaning lady who thinks she's smart." "PhD candidate in linguistics," Maya said, her voice unwavering. 6 international publications, all in your system. All ignored. Nathan nodded slowly. "I've called an emergency board meeting. 30 minutes. By then, I want your resignation letter on my desk." Whitaker tried to laugh it off. "You're not serious? Over some baseless accusations?" "Choose your next words very carefully," Nathan said, his voice sharp as a blade. An hour later, the auditorium was packed. Executives, managers, and international delegates filled every seat. At the front of the stage, Maya stood beside Nathan as he unveiled everything. The discriminatory hiring patterns, the inflated contracts, and the talent buried under a system designed to keep people like her silent. As charts, names, and evidence filled the screen behind them, the truth exploded into the room like a thunderclap. Maya didn't look at Whitaker as he was escorted out by security. She didn't need to. The truth had already spoken. 6 months had passed since Maya Carter stood beside Nathan Blake in the executive auditorium and watched an empire of silent prejudice collapse. What had begun with a phone call in German and a conversation behind a potted plant had grown into a movement that reshaped more than just one company. It shook an entire industry. Now, Maya sat behind the frosted glass door of her new office on the 41st floor, overlooking the pulsing grid of Manhattan. A small plaque read, "Dr. Maya Carter, Vice President of Diversity and Global Engagement." Her tailored suit, her leather-bound planner, the assistant waiting outside, it all felt surreal. But what mattered most wasn't the title. It was what she was doing with it. Her voice rang confidently in the sleek conference room as she addressed regional managers across the country on a live stream. In 6 months, the Invisible Talent Initiative has identified 139 employees with advanced skills in law, finance, IT, and linguistics, all of whom were previously in non-executive roles. 87% of them are women or people of color. She clicked to the next slide, showcasing the financial results. Outsourced translation costs are down 79%. Client satisfaction among our international partners has increased by 40%. More importantly, our culture is changing. We are becoming what we promised we were. Nathan, seated beside her, gave a rare smile of genuine pride. Maya continued, introducing the next phase of the program, a structured mentorship network. Each employee promoted through the initiative would now mentor 2 others from within the company, ensuring that the chain of empowerment didn't end with them. Across the country, in a modest hotel in Reno, Nevada, Tanya Brooks watched the broadcast from a break room. Demoted after the investigation, she now oversaw laundry services at a second-rate property, her authority stripped, her legacy tainted. Her face remained stone still as Maya's voice echoed through the small screen, a painful reminder of what had been lost and who had risen in her place. As for Paul Whitaker, no luxury firm would touch him. His name had become synonymous with systemic bias and embezzlement. Rumors placed him working night shifts at a roadside inn outside Flagstaff, his only company, the dim glow of a flickering lobby lamp. His niece, Ashley, was forced to return every cent she'd earned through fraudulent contracts. Ironically, she was now enrolled in a certified Mandarin course, paid for by a scholarship from the Coleman Foundation for Inclusive Language Education. Back in Manhattan, Maya returned to her office to find a cream-colored envelope on her desk. Inside was a letter from Humboldt University inviting her to serve as a visiting lecturer in international legal linguistics. Attached was a postcard with a simple handwritten note from Professor Kramer. "The world needs more voices like yours." Maya stared out at the skyline, tears welling quietly. She remembered the sting of bleach on her fingers, the way Tanya used to scold her for leaving streaks on the conference table glass, the countless nights she walked home with her resume clutched under her arm like a forgotten dream. She picked up the phone and called her mother's old number, not expecting an answer, just needing the connection. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "I made it, Mom. They see me now." The next day, Maya announced the launch of the Open Door Fund, a scholarship and professional development program for hospitality workers and their children. The first recipient, the daughter of a former janitorial co-worker who dreamed of becoming a hotel manager. Later that week, Maya closed a major deal with a Tokyo-based legal firm, entirely in fluent Japanese. When the executive complimented her accent, Maya simply smiled and said, "It's amazing what people can do when someone finally listens." In the silence that followed, she didn't hear applause. She heard doors opening, one by one, behind her. Because Maya's greatest victory wasn't watching the powerful fall. It was making sure the next generation didn't have to fight just to be seen. Life lesson from Maya's story. Maya Carter's journey is more than just a tale of triumph. It's a powerful reminder of the silent battles fought behind closed doors, beneath uniforms, and beyond assumptions. For years, Maya was overlooked, not because she lacked talent, but because the system refused to see her. Her story teaches us that true potential isn't always dressed in a suit or seated at a boardroom table. Sometimes it's quietly scrubbing the floor, waiting for a moment to be heard. This story reveals the devastating cost of bias, not just for individuals, but for entire institutions that bury brilliance under prejudice. It shows that injustice isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers through hiring decisions, ignored resumes, and fake smiles. But it also shows that real change begins when someone stands up, tells the truth, and refuses to accept invisibility. Maya didn't just reclaim her voice, she used it to open doors for others. That's what true leadership looks like. It's not about titles or corner offices. It's about creating space where others can rise, too. So wherever you are, whatever you're wearing, and no matter how many times you've been told no, remember this. Your worth is not defined by their recognition. Talent doesn't need permission to exist. It needs a chance to shine. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful, real-life inspired stories that celebrate resilience, justice, and the courage to rise.